One drop of water ruined her beauty. She accepted the gift of beauty, with just one rule: never let water touch her face. They say some blessings arrive wrapped like warnings, and some promises shine so brightly that you forget to look at the shadow behind them. Rub this on your face, the voice whispered, calm and certain, and you will become the most beautiful woman in this village. The words sounded gentle, almost kind, like an answer to a prayer whispered too many times in the dark. But then came the rule. Water must never touch your face. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. At first, it didn't sound dangerous, just strange, almost harmless. After all, how hard could it be to keep water away from your face? People avoid rain all the time. People cover their heads. People are careful. But there was something about the way the warning was spoken. Slow, heavy, as if each word carried weight beyond its sound. As if the rule itself was alive, watching, waiting. The promise of beauty is powerful. It reaches places pain has lived for years. It speaks directly to wounds no one else can see. For a woman who has been ignored, mocked, and overlooked, beauty does not sound like vanity. It sounds like survival. It sounds like relief. It sounds like finally being seen. What if this is the answer I've been begging for? That single thought can silence fear. The rule remained simple, but it was absolute. No exceptions. No explanations. No second chances mentioned. Just a line drawn between before and after. Never let water touch your face. Not during rain. Not during sleep. Not in moments of carelessness. Not even when you are tired. Not even when you are happy. And isn't it strange how the most dangerous warnings often come without details? No list of consequences. No description of pain. Just a quiet certainty that something terrible waits on the other side of disobedience. Why would beauty demand such obedience? The narrator's voice softens here, because this is where many lives change. Not with a scream, but with a decision made in silence. A moment when hope becomes louder than caution. Because when someone has suffered long enough, even a risky miracle feels safer than another ordinary day of pain. The blessing sounded complete. The rule sounded manageable. And the cost remained unnamed. That is how the trap closes gently without force. That is how destiny begins to turn. Slowly, quietly, politely. And somewhere, unseen and unspoken, the price of breaking the rule waited patiently. In the quiet village of red earth and tall palm trees, everyone knew Chey. Not because she was important, not because she was admired, but because she was the woman no one chose. Chey was 30 years old. In a village where girls married at 16 and carried babies before their youth faded, her age alone felt like a punishment. People did not say it openly, but their eyes spoke clearly. To them, she was late. She was wrong. She was incomplete. Every morning before the sun rose, Chey woke up alone. She swept the dust from her small compound, fetched water from the stream, cooked simple food, and carried vegetables to the market. Her hands were rough from work, her body thin from years of struggle. Life had not been gentle with her, and it showed. Women whispered when she passed. Men laughed without hiding it. Children pointed and ran away, repeating words they did not understand but had learned well. Sometimes the laughter followed her like a shadow. Sometimes it waited for her to turn her back. But it was always there. Chey heard everything. She just learned not to answer. At night, she returned to her small mud house at the edge of the village. No husband's voice greeted her. No child cried for her attention. Only silence filled the room, thick and heavy. She lay on her mat and stared at the roof, counting the cracks like they were years of her life. Is this all my life will ever be? She prayed quietly, not loudly like others, not proudly. Her prayers were careful, almost apologetic, as if she feared asking for too much. She asked for love. She asked for dignity. She asked for just one person to see her beyond her face. But days passed, then years, and nothing changed. During festivals, married women sat together, laughing and sharing stories of husbands and children. Chey always sat alone. During weddings, she helped cook and wash plates, smiling politely while joy danced around her but never touched her. When someone's child was sick, women gathered to pray together. Chey prayed too, but from a distance, as if her presence might disturb the blessing. Was being alone really a crime? She had learned how to smile without happiness. She had learned how to swallow insults without tears. She had learned how to pretend she was strong. But inside her chest, something ached every single day. More than food, more than comfort, Chey wanted one simple thing: to be chosen. Not admired by many, just chosen by one. And so she walked through life unseen, carrying her loneliness quietly, never knowing that her pain was preparing her for a choice that would change everything. It started quietly, the way dangerous things often do. One afternoon, as Chey walked back from the market with her basket half empty, a man matched his steps with hers. He was tall, clean, and confident. His clothes were neat, and his smile looked easy, practiced. When he greeted her politely, Chey almost stopped walking. Men did not greet her like that. "My sister," he said warmly, as if the words belonged to her. Chey replied softly, unsure, her heart suddenly beating faster than it had in years. Over the next few days, the man returned. He sat outside her house in the evenings, talking to her as the sun went down. He told her his name was Titus. He said he had just moved to the village. He listened when she spoke. He laughed gently at her small jokes. No one had ever taken time with her like that before. He told her she was kind. He said she was hardworking. He spoke of her inner beauty. Those words were simple, but to Chey, they felt like rain after a long drought. She began to smile without forcing herself. She tied her wrapper more carefully. She started to believe that maybe, just maybe, her life was changing. Could this finally be my turn? Then the requests began. At first, they were small. Money for transport, help to start a business, support because his mother was sick. Each request came with soft promises and loving words. Chey did not hesitate. She sold her goats. She gave him her savings. She even parted with the little jewelry her mother had left her. Love, she believed, meant sacrifice. One day, Titus did not come. Then another day passed. Then another. Worried and confused, Chey went looking for him. She found him in another part of the village, laughing loudly with a young, beautiful woman. The woman's skin was smooth, her eyes bright, her smile careless. Chey's heart dropped. When Titus saw her, his face hardened. The warmth vanished. The kindness disappeared. In its place was cruelty, sharp and public. "What are you doing here?" he snapped. Before Chey could speak, he laughed. Loud enough for people to gather. He pointed at her without shame. "Look at you," he shouted. "Did you really think I would marry someone like you?" The crowd watched. Some whispered. Some smiled. "You are ugly," he continued. "Dry like firewood. I only stayed because of your money." The woman beside him laughed. In that moment, Chey felt something inside her break. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, final crack. The last piece of hope she had been protecting shattered in front of everyone. How much pain can one heart hold? Titus walked away without looking back. The crowd slowly scattered, leaving Chey standing alone, shaking, exposed. Shame burned her skin hotter than the sun above. She did not cry there. Her tears waited until she was truly alone. The sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the sky with soft gold and crimson, but Chey hardly noticed. Her legs carried her to the village stream, the quiet place where water flowed gently, and the world felt slightly softer. She sank onto a large stone at the edge, her basket abandoned, her chest heavy with the weight of betrayal. Tears fell freely, unrestrained, as if they carried every insult, every mocking laugh, every lonely night she had endured. She cried until her eyes burned, until her throat ached, until she could barely remember how to breathe. The water rippled beside her, reflecting the sorrow in her soul but offering no answers. Why does life hurt so much? Why am I always alone? She thought, her mind twisting in exhaustion. A quiet presence made her lift her head. At the edge of the stream, slightly bent with age, an old woman stood. Her hair was white like cotton, her eyes sharp and knowing, as if they could peer directly into the depths of Chey's heart. She did not speak at first, just watched. "My daughter," the woman said gently, her voice carrying warmth and authority all at once. "Why do you cry like someone who has lost her destiny?" Chey shook her head, unsure if she dared answer. "I have lost everything," she whispered, her voice fragile, almost swallowed by the wind. The old woman smiled faintly, but her eyes remained intense. "No, my child," she corrected softly. "You have only lost your patience." From a small, worn bag, the woman pulled a tiny wooden bowl filled with dark, fine powder. It looked ordinary at first glance, but there was something in its depth, an energy, a promise, and a danger wrapped together. "Rub this on your face every day, and you will become the most beautiful woman in this village," she said, her tone steady, certain. Chey's heart skipped. She felt hope like a fluttering bird trapped inside her chest. But then the old woman leaned closer and spoke the words Chey would never forget. "But remember, water must never touch your face." Chey blinked, her mind spinning. How could beauty come with such a rule? What could it mean? And yet, could she refuse this gift when everything in her life had been cold and empty until now? "If this is my only chance, I have no choice," Chey thought silently, her fingers brushing the edge of the wooden bowl. The old woman vanished as quietly as she appeared, leaving Chey alone beside the flowing water, staring at the strange powder. The ripples moved gently around her, but she knew, deep inside, that her life was about to change forever. Fear and hope danced together, sharp and dizzying, as she wondered what would come next. And in that quiet moment, Chey realized something. Sometimes, destiny does not knock. Sometimes, it appears at the edge of a stream, wrapped in mystery, and asks you to take the first step. The night was quiet, yet Chey could not sleep. Her small room smelled faintly of smoke and herbs, but her mind was alive with anticipation and fear. The wooden bowl sat beside her mat, dark and heavy, carrying the promise of a life she had never dared to imagine. Every few minutes, she reached out to touch it, as if confirming it was real. Before dawn, she made her decision. She washed her hands carefully, heart thumping, and dipped a trembling finger into the powder. The moment it touched her skin, fire seemed to crawl beneath her flesh, sharp and insistent. A burning pain shot across her face, deep and relentless, but she did not scream. She remembered the old woman's warning. Water must never touch your face. She closed her eyes and endured, letting the powder work its strange magic. The burning was not ordinary. It was cleansing, reshaping, awakening something buried for years. Her muscles tensed. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She wanted to wipe it off, to escape the pain, but a small, daring hope kept her still. What kind of beauty could demand such suffering? Minutes felt like hours. The heat subsided, leaving a strange tightness, a sensation she had never known before. Her heart raced as she leaned toward the broken mirror hanging crookedly on her wall. At first, she saw only herself, Chey as she had always been, thin, rough, unnoticed. But slowly, the contours of her face began to shift. Her cheekbones softened, her eyes seemed to catch the light differently, and her skin looked smoother, clearer. She froze, holding her breath. Could this be real? Chey covered her mouth with both hands, stunned by the reflection staring back at her. It was not perfection yet, but it was different, alive, transformative. For the first time, she felt a strange, unsteady thrill. She was being seen, not just by herself, but by a world that had ignored her for too long. Could this really be happening? Am I finally enough? She touched her face lightly, afraid to disturb the delicate balance between pain and promise. Her lips seemed fuller, her eyes brighter, carrying a glow that felt impossible yet undeniable. In that moment, a simple truth settled over her. She could change her story, at least for a little while, if she obeyed the rules. The first day passed with whispered glances and subtle recognition. Even from a distance, Chey felt eyes follow her, noticing what had always been invisible. Men greeted her shyly. Women paused mid-sentence, murmuring. A small, secret smile tugged at her lips. It was more than beauty. It was a glimpse of a life she had dared to dream about. And yet, she knew the magic was fragile. The old woman's warning rang in her ears like a bell. One mistake, and everything could vanish. She would have to live with this tension, this thrill, and this fear every single day. Chey sat alone that night, staring at her reflection once more. She had endured the burning pain, and it had been worth it. Her face had changed, but more importantly, she felt the stirrings of courage, hope, and possibility she had never known. By the time the sun rose the next morning, the village looked the same. The red dust, the palm trees, the narrow paths, they had not changed. But everything else had. Chey stepped out of her small house, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. Her face, now glowing and transformed, caught the sunlight in a way it never had before. As she walked toward the market, she noticed it immediately. People stopped. Eyes widened. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Whispers trailed behind her like a gentle wind carrying a secret. A woman selling peppers froze, her hands suspended over the basket. "Is that Chey?" she murmured to the neighbor beside her. Another woman leaned closer, hiding her mouth but unable to hide her astonishment. Men who had once laughed at her now found themselves unsure where to look. Some nodded politely. Others offered smiles that seemed too careful, too deliberate. Chey felt a strange mixture of pride and disbelief. Could this be real? All these years, unnoticed, and now they cannot look away. Even children, once fearless in their teasing, now followed at a distance, calling her pretty with shy admiration. The air itself seemed to hum with attention. Chey realized, with a quiet shiver, that her life had shifted in ways she had never imagined. She walked slowly, feeling each gaze, each whisper, each hesitant gesture of admiration. Powerful men, wealthy and confident, began to appear, offering small gifts, seeking excuses to pass her way, pretending to ask for directions while their eyes lingered on her. Some brought flowers or fruits. Others simply bowed in acknowledgement. And yet, amidst all this, Chey did not feel entirely comfortable. Her beauty was not her own. She had borrowed it, paid for it with patience and obedience to the strange rule. The power she now held was fragile, tied to a secret that no one could know. Every smile she received, every respectful nod, carried with it a shadow of fear. One slip, one mistake, and it would all vanish. Still, she could not deny the feeling of being wanted, of finally being seen. It was intoxicating, thrilling, and terrifying all at once. The village that once ignored and mocked her now bowed, figuratively, and in many ways literally, to her presence. Chey's steps were careful but confident. Each time someone stopped to admire her, she felt a spark of validation she had longed for all her life. The cruel laughter, the pointed fingers, the whispered insults, they had all disappeared, replaced by awe and curiosity. But deep inside, Chey understood something essential. Beauty could command attention, but it could not heal loneliness, nor could it mend a heart that had been broken. She carried both her gift and her secret, knowing that the admiration she received was fleeting, dependent, and conditional. And yet, for now, she allowed herself a small, private moment of triumph. For the first time, she walked among her village as someone who was noticed, someone who mattered, even if only for her face. The news spread through the village like wildfire. Chief Obina, wealthy, respected, and powerful, had chosen Chey. The same people who had ignored her, mocked her, whispered about her age and appearance, now watched in stunned silence. She was to become a bride, a chief's wife. Chey could hardly believe it. Her small hands trembled as she accepted the gifts and the proposal, a mix of disbelief, joy, and fear twisting together in her chest. For the first time in her life, she would live in a house filled with soft floors, painted walls, and servants who bowed quietly as she passed. Her wedding day arrived, grand and bright. Drums echoed through the village. Music swirled through the air. Guests adorned in colorful garments filled every corner. Women who had once sneered now smiled politely, their envy thinly disguised. Men who had mocked her bowed respectfully, and children stared in wonder. Yet amidst the celebrations, Chey's heart carried a secret tension. Every movement, every step toward happiness, reminded her of the strange powder and its strict rule. She could feel it in her bones. One careless touch of water, one slip, and everything she had gained could vanish in an instant. Am I truly happy? Or is this just borrowed joy? She dressed in the finest fabrics, adorned with jewelry that glittered like captured stars. She felt like a queen, yet her hands shook as she adjusted her wrapper, afraid that even a stray raindrop or a slip in the bath could undo it all. The house was beautiful, but every glance at a basin, every sound of running water, set her heart racing. She smiled, laughed, and accepted congratulations, but the smile was cautious, tempered by fear. Chief Obina treated her with care, his respect undeniable. Yet even his admiration could not erase the shadow in her chest. The beauty she now possessed was not her own. It was borrowed, fragile, dependent on a secret that could not be shared. She had dreamed of being wanted, of being chosen, and now she was, but at a price she could never forget. During the night, the servants led her to a grand bathtub filled with warm water and rose petals. Chey froze at the sight. Her pulse thundered. She had obeyed the rule for weeks, but now the very thing that symbolized comfort and care threatened everything. With slow, careful steps, she positioned herself, wrapping her head and avoiding the water, hands gripping the cloth tightly. Each motion was measured, precise, terrifying. She climbed into the bed after, her body weary, her mind alert. Her beauty had brought her respect, attention, and love, or at least the appearance of it. But every heartbeat reminded her of the rule she must never break. The happiness surrounding her felt like glass, beautiful, shining, but so fragile that a single touch could shatter it completely. Yet still, for a moment, she allowed herself to imagine a life where she could relax, laugh, and be loved without fear. It was a dream she clung to, even knowing the danger that hovered over it like a storm cloud. Chey's heart raced as she stepped into the grand bathroom of Chief Obina's house. The soft glow of the lights reflected off polished floors and the rose petals floating in the bathtub. Everything smelled of luxury: soap, perfume, fresh linens. But all she could hear was the pounding of her own heart. She had obeyed the rule for weeks, avoided water at all costs, and clung to the fragile beauty that had changed her life. She placed a foot carefully on the smooth floor, then the other. Each movement was deliberate, measured, careful. The warmth of the water called to her, but she stayed focused, avoiding even a hint of contact with her face. She picked up the towel slowly, preparing to dry her feet. And then it happened. Her foot slipped. The smooth floor betrayed her. She lost balance. Time seemed to stretch as her body tipped backward. Arms flailed. The tub loomed beneath her. She tried to catch herself, but her face plunged straight into the water. No scream could capture the shock, the horror, the disbelief. Water, cool and unforgiving, splashed everywhere. Her hands scrabbled, her body shook, and panic rose like fire in her chest. No, no. This cannot happen, she thought, her mind a whirlwind of fear. She stumbled upright, heart hammering, and rushed to the mirror. The reflection froze her blood. The smooth, glowing skin, the full lips, the bright, shining eyes, all vanished in an instant. In their place were the face she had known all her life. Thin, cracked, tired, and weathered by hardship. Her cheekbones had sharpened, her eyes sunken, and the fragile illusion of beauty had melted away like wax near a flame. Chief Obina's voice cut through the silence, loud and horrified. "What is?" He stopped, staring. The room seemed to hold its breath. Servants froze. Gasps echoed. Someone fainted. "This is not my wife," he shouted, stepping back, eyes wide with disbelief. Every ounce of respect, every glance of admiration, evaporated instantly. Chey stood there, dripping water, her heart breaking again. She lifted her trembling face slowly. "It's me," she whispered, voice shaking. "I am the woman you married." No one moved. Silence weighed heavily. Chey's chest rose and fell with each shaky breath. "Cannot hide it anymore. There is nothing left to protect." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she spoke, recounting her life. The loneliness, the mockery, the suffering, the betrayal by Titus, and the strange powder that had given her borrowed beauty. She spoke of her fear, her hope, and the fleeting happiness she had allowed herself to feel. Every word trembled with honesty, and yet it could not change the shock in the room. The magic was gone. The borrowed beauty vanished with a single drop of water. What remained was truth, raw and undeniable. Chief Obina stepped back, pale, his voice cold and tired. "This marriage was built on a lie," he said, "and a lie cannot stay under the same roof with truth." Chey did not cry for his anger or judgment. She understood. The illusion that had carried her so far had ended. She had returned, finally, to herself. Chey stood at the edge of the grand house, the morning sun casting long shadows across the courtyard. Her heart ached, not from fear, not from anger, but from a quiet, hollow understanding. The life she had dreamed of, respect, admiration, love, had been built on borrowed beauty and fragile illusions. Now it lay in pieces around her, and there was nothing left to grasp. The villagers whispered behind closed doors, their glances sharp and cold. Those who had danced at her wedding now avoided her eyes. Even the children who had followed her in awe no longer dared to approach. Chey walked slowly, her steps deliberate, carrying the weight of truth that no magic could ever disguise. Is this my punishment or my freedom? She wondered silently, her bare feet pressed into the red earth of the village paths, familiar yet foreign. Each step was a reminder of the years she had lived unseen, of the laughter and mockery she had swallowed in silence. She did not turn back. There was nothing to reclaim, nothing left to plead for. Honesty demanded its own path, and she had chosen to follow it. By midday, she reached the stream where the old woman had first appeared. The water flowed gently, indifferent to human suffering. Chey knelt at the edge, dipping her fingers into it and watching the ripples spread, knowing she had finally returned to herself. The powder was gone, her magic vanished. But so too was the fear that had gripped her every waking moment. She closed her eyes and inhaled the soft breeze, the rustle of palm trees, the distant chatter of birds. For the first time in her life, she felt neither shame nor longing, only quiet, measured peace. Her face reflected no borrowed beauty, only the truth of her existence, and she accepted it fully. People she passed avoided her gaze, but she no longer needed their recognition. The laughter of strangers, the whispers of judgment, these no longer mattered. She had endured cruelty, betrayal, and loss, yet she had survived. Each step she took beyond the village felt lighter, freer, and more deliberate. Chey began to work in a small town far from the village, where no one knew her story. She sold vegetables, swept the paths, cooked simple meals. Life was hard, but it was hers, honest and unpretentious. People respected her not for the glow of her face, but for the steadiness of her heart, the quiet courage in her actions. For the first time, she smiled without fear, without calculation, without borrowed power. Sitting by the stream in her new home, Chey looked into the water and saw herself reflected back. Real, unadorned, complete. Tears fell, but they were not of sorrow. They were tears of relief, of release, of acceptance. She had lost illusions, but she had gained the truth, and it was stronger than any magic.